me. Once again, my name is Daniel Bringhurst. I'm with the Cycle of Success Institute. And if I can jump right into what's happening behind the scenes within Cycle of Success Institute, we took a step back and realized we were asking the wrong questions. For example, we come to an issue and say, is it possible to confront? We realized we should essentially ask, how is it possible? Now, if I can give you an example of that, take this piece of paper, for instance. Let me get it up in the camera here. How is it possible for me to tear a hole in this piece of paper big enough to put my head in? Well, if I start here and put a tear in it. Now I know I can feel you all looking at my head right now, kind of wondering how could they ever put a big enough a hole in a piece of paper to pull this off. But here, bear with me. Bear with me. Now put another tear over here. Let me keep it up in the camera so you know it's not some sleight of hand pulling it out of my shirt sleeve here. So funny story about learning this. When I first showed it to my wife, it was about this point she pretended to start snoring. But as I got to tell her as well, have faith, only believe. We're getting there. We're getting there. You know, this is also, if you ever personally want to learn this is a great way to teach children patience. And now here's the tricky part. We got to open it up just a little bit before we do the big reveal. There we go. Put a tear here. And come here, you. Oh, got to keep it up so you can see it. Put a tear here. And one more tear. I know, been holding your breath. Put one more tear. Come here. I got to get it up so you can see. Now, minding the microphone, we have a custom-made, handcrafted wood pulp necklace that I can fit my head through. So that all came from asking, how is it possible? And once again, it's not because I'm smart. It's not because I'm intelligent. It's not because I'm lucky. It's because I was trained to do this. And I'm also trained in the Cycle of Success system. Now, the Cycle of Success Institute system has worked with over 4,000 organizations since 2001. And those organizations in the first 12 months have added on average over $1.2 million to their bottom line, and in the same amount of time added 10% to their top end sales. And that all was done through systematic employee retention. In fact, it's been so impactful that the state of Illinois created Cycle of Success Institute Day, COSI Day, as they call it, the acronym for Cycle of Success Institute. They literally can match the increase in their economy to the impact of the Cycle of Success Institute on their economy. I mean, look it up. It's March 16th. So this is really the point where a lot of people are interested in talking about their specific businesses and moving forward, which I'm going to show you a presentation in a minute. But if you are interested in looking at your individual businesses, I'm going to drop my information in the chat right now. It just went out to you. Now, let's transition to the presentation itself. Let me share my screen. And, all right, can I get some feedback? Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, it looks good.
Great. All right. Once again, Daniel Bringhurst, Cycle of Success Institute, and we're talking today about unlocking your business's full potential. This next slide here, you'll see some of the organizations that have allowed us to mention their names. With everybody we work with, we give them a non-disclosure agreement, but these ones in particular have allowed us to share who they are. One we're especially excited about is, you can see on that second line, third from the left, the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, the 7th district there. Earlier, I mentioned the organizations, the big numbers since 2001. This is a snapshot of the past 100 clients. You can see that, you can see that, yes, they've all done over $1 million in the first 12 months to their operating profit. And granted, it's a little behind average. But the one thing that we'll circle back to is, you can see in the second line, second from the left, is that 25 to 45% increase in employee morale. And we're going to show you how that was done right now. So why COSI? Just a few things. One in particular, right in the middle, it quickly brings value with complete ROI in 60 to 90 days for really medium-sized businesses and greater. And I'll talk about that as well, especially in the question and answer time. Here you see the full 12 months. So the way this is set up is the Cycle of Success Institute begins working with your organization. And after 12 months, training you in how this works, what you're seeing right here, we leave. And at that point, the organization can take it and do this repeatedly year after year and continue to see growth. So the first step is discovering, finding improvements. Now this really happens in 1 3-hour meeting. It's the longest meeting that we ever have in the entire year, and it's free. This is what we call a free test drive. And essentially what we do is sit down with you, the owner, and some key employees, and we ask questions, and we give people sticky notes. We give people sticky notes and say, okay, what can be improved in this area? How can this be done better? And we typically come up with over 100 sticky notes, 100 plus improvements. And then we go through your business process mapping, look at your business specifically, and we figure out where the choke points are, get another sticky note for that. Then what do? We have all these sticky notes, over 100 plus sticky notes. We put them into a 7M analysis. And what we usually find is the majority of the sticky notes have to do with 3, maybe 4 issues. And once we determine those 3, 4 issues, we continue breaking it down into what we call the attack list. We take the top 10 according to valuation, the ones that could save the company the most money, the organization the most money, or make the organization the most money. And then we're done. That's the first 3 hours. From there, we take that information and we go into step 2 of implementing. The team's implementing improvements. Now that is done in weekly sessions over 45 minutes. We organize into what's called tiger teams. Now, yes, when I first heard that phrase, I thought it was kind of cute, tiger teams. But NASA is actually the one who came up with that term. So on April 11th, 1970, Apollo 13 took off. They were in space, I believe, a day and a half when they started their actual approach to the moon. And that's the point where Apollo 13 radio backed and coined the famous phrase, Houston, we have a problem. In fact, they had several problems, one of which they're actually having problems with their communication system, even though they did communicate. Something bigger would be that they honestly lost their navigational control. So they're lost in space for effective or greater work. But even more important, they were losing oxygen. So what NASA did, they said, okay, we have a limited amount of time. Not only are these people they can barely communicate with us to begin with, they're hurtling away from us. Oh, they're out of control, and we can't control them in space, and they're losing oxygen. Big issues. So what they did is they didn't go out and find professionals. They didn't find people experts in that. They took the people in the room and organized them. And they said, okay, you're a tiger team. You're addressing the oxygen. You're a tiger team. You're addressing the navigational control. You're a tiger team. You're addressing their ability to communicate. And what this picture here is showing is the actual solution to the oxygen issue. That box near the top of the screen is actually the adaptation they created to fit into a cylindrical opening. to repair the oxygen leak. So they literally made a square peg fit into a round hole. And that was all done through intense, focused effort. And that's why we're calling them Tiger Teams, to bring intense, focused effort, 45 minutes a week, to capitalize on these issues and potential spots of advancement. And as you can see with NASA, great results. They got to orbit the moon, collect data, and return these astronauts safely to the Earth, even though they had these catastrophic issues, and that was all done through Tiger Teams. From there, we step into aligning. So essentially everyone working toward the company goals. And this comes from a conglomeration of really well-known things, but one thing in particular. And we can look at it through this example here. What do these two things have in common? A Big Mac and a fighter jet. They're created exactly the same way every time. They have a standard operating procedure. It's a known, this is a known thing within especially good manufacturing practices, but out there in industry in general, standard operating procedures. Focus on those, bring in the 5S manufacturing mentality and spread it out to really any industry. And I can go into that in detail when we actually meet. But we take that and bring that into now a sustaining mode, where we ensure the strong leadership. We have those SOPs, those standard operating procedures in place, bringing in the 5S methodology with capacity and scheduling, bring in the forecasting and budget, tie it all together to once again tie in the full cycle of success system. And once again, after 12 months, the Cycle of Success Institute, we leave. Because we just spent the past 12 months training your organization to be able to carry this out seamlessly by itself. And honestly, it instills a culture of excitement and advancement that will stay with your organization even long after you decide to sell it. So once again, here's the results for the past 100 clients. And yes, if I can remind you, since 2001, we've worked with over 4,000 organizations. And in the first 12 months, those 12 months that we get to work in person, they have on average increased their bottom line profit by over $1.2 million. And in the same amount of time, those first 12 months, they've increased their top line sales by 10%. But on this slide, once again, if you look at that bottom row, second from the left, you see that 25 to 45% increase in employee morale scores. I mean, when I see 45%, okay, you know, in 12 months, that's appreciable, but what does that really mean? It means that these people on the Tiger Teams are being heard. They're bringing their ideas, right? I said in that first 3-hour meeting, the longest meeting we have, it's all done in 3 hours. They're being heard, and they see their ideas categorized and actually valued, and then they get to do them. Every week, 45 minutes, incredibly manageable schedule to now put these ideas into effect. And so these employees, these people are now bought in. So that's why we see that 45% increase in employer morale scores. And you know, what does that translate to? People staying. I mean, really, people, if somebody's going to stay 10 years, they're staying 15 years. If they're staying 2 years, they're staying 3 years now. It's half the amount of trying to find employees. It's what people really want. They put their hand to work. They've planted a seed and they've nurtured it, and now they can see it grow. And the organization becomes theirs in their mind. Granted, you're still the boss, and whoever you decide to sell to is still the boss. But they're excited about what they do every day now. And that's where we see those increase in morale scores. And honestly, that's why the Cycle of Success Institute's program has been so revolutionary.